I'll do a little, or I will hold it up. Can I add us? Oh, look, there's three of us now. So this is Maggie's amazing book, which if you are into spinning at all, and if you're in the guild, you probably are, this
Yeah.
is a wonderful book to go with. I pulled it out and I have little tabs in it.
Where is my copy? Oh, there it is.
So this is one of my favorite books and one of my most used books when I was a newbie spinner, but every once in a while I still refer back to it. The tabs are actually on the drum carding section because it is wonderful.
Nice.
And
That's that's
yeah,
actually
Maggie is amazing. I will not say what I usually say about Maggie because it makes her mad.
well, now
I
I want to
usually call
know.
her my national treasure,
She
Maggie
is a
Casey.
national treasure.
And where is Nicolas Cage when you need him?
I know, right? But Maggie is amazing, and we are lucky enough to have her at SSK this year too. So,
That's
and
very
last time Maggie was at SSK, we had a teacher cancel, and I had to teach, and I was so mad because I wanted to teach. I wanted to take some of Maggie's classes, so I made Leslie, who's my business partner, and because I couldn't take Maggie's classes, I told her she had to buy me a cherry matchless.
did
So
she?
that's how I got my cherry matchless. Yes.
Wow. I
See?
don't have any friends that will do that to me. For
Well,
me.
the business paid for it, but yes. So
I,
anyway, I'm gonna disappear off the main screen, but
oh
I'm
no,
sure.
don't do that. Stay here.
Okay.
Please.
You're running the show.
Mm,
Yeah.
something the
I'm just
show.
here doing this thing that Maggie taught me how to do. Um,
Ooh.
so we're going to keep you guys up, but I'm going to do a little bit of just guild business for just a sec. As you guys know, we just released a video that may have seemed slightly out of sequence, but we've gotten so many people asking for, like, I'm just sitting down, I'm doing this for the first time, and even what you already have is like too far beyond what I already know. And so we wanted to put in an episode that was very, you're just sitting down for the first time, and here's how you do it. And Maggie is, while she is amazing at lots of things, she is one of the best you're spinning for the first time. So that just dropped, which was awesome. And Heavenly was here the week before. And so we did this like crazy scramble to put in, we have this little section of Heavenly that didn't really fit in Heavenly's other episodes. And we thought it was kind of a perfect place to like sneak it in. Plus, I was really excited to get Heavenly in the guild. So she's got a little segment in this last episode. And but we filmed a lot with Maggie. We filmed a lot of stuff and I learned a ton and I can't wait for you guys to see it all. And we'll talk about that in a second. But I have Roy coming in 2 days and I'm really excited about that. And I'm supposed to, I'm supposed to get a box from him tomorrow, which is supposed to have a bunch of fiber in it. He's sending an electric carder, which is funny because I have a convertible of theirs that I use and we might use some today, but he wants to use both in his videos. So that's happening. What else? The guild is going well. Our numbers are pretty steady at around 1550, 1548, which is really good. My goal for the end of 2 years in a sustainability way is 2,000 people is like is good and keeps me from having to raise. I've been really reticent to raise the subscription or advertising prices of the magazine for 10 years. And so since they're all kind of one business they kind of support each other. So the guild is doing really well, which is good because I did not win the Powerball last night. Though somebody in Maryland, I think it was the Powerball and not the Mega Millions, someone in Maryland won $1 billion. One person. Was it? It was not me. I had to tell the kids this morning. It was not me. So that's kind of where the guild is right now. We're putting together the next episode, which I'm pretty sure is gonna be Jillian, because I've made Jillian wait so long to have this episode. And I just got done emailing with Emily Wolscheid from Bricolage, and she's coming, and we were talking about kind of for this first season doing an intro to texture, just like a little episode about texture through spinning, texture through carding, texture through plying, just kind of an intro to how you do it. So she's coming, going to do some of that. And yeah, that's guild business right now. That's all the business we have. And Maggie was here, and when Maggie was here, we did some fiber prep, and we used this stuff right here, not the same fiber, but we used this stuff, which is the Good Clean Fiber from the Clemases. And Maggie said, Maggie said that I would want to wash my own fleece. And so far, she is not right about that. But what she is right about, what she is right about is this stuff that the Clemases make, right, which is already washed. And Maggie does an episode, which you'll see soon, about using this and how to go about using it so that you don't have to wash your own, but you still get to play with fleece and process it. And Maggie, it is, you're not wrong. It is, I am enjoying it so much. Not washing it, but playing with it. And right now I'm essentially picking it out like Maggie showed me and processing it for season 3, the season 3 wall hanging, which I don't know who it was, and we might have to go through the recording because I don't know who it was that said this idea, but I have full on run with it. The idea of using the color that humans have used in the order that we've used it.
Oh, that was so good.
Oh my gosh, right? Okay, let me open up my chat thing so I can. And so what we're doing is we're also putting it in the, while I was like kind of brainstorming and trying to figure out how to do this, we're also dealing with the color or the hue issue of the magazine, which between you and me is just the color issue of the magazine take 2, because there's way more stuff to do, but it seemed weird to call it color, so we just call it hue. But since we're doing that right now, we're like planning the articles for it. And I was planning this, I decided to kind of make it a project for the magazine too. So the idea that one of you spinners gave me was that the warp is going to be natural colored wool, right? Wool that we first got to use, color that we first got to use when we started doing fiber arts or spinning. And so I was talking to Deb Robeson about that, and I think we're going to go with Shetland for the warp. For the weft, for the tabby weft, we're doing we're doing Border Leicester, and I sent it to Jane Woodhouse, and she is doing the first natural dyes that humans use, like the first ones that we have record of people using, which is kind of like ruddy reds and browns, right? So that's kind of, that's the, she's going to send it back. I'm going to card it, and I'm going to spin it into a single that's going to be the tabby weft. And then the pattern weft is this Corriedale that I'm processing right now. And I'm going to spin it. I'm going to I'm going to card it. And, ooh, did I say that backwards? The tabby weft is combed, and that's going to be spun worsted into a single. And this is going to be carded and spun double draft, then sent to Alana Wilcox, and she is going to color match it with this color called Mauvine, which was the first synthetic dye color, which is really like this kind of almost, it's almost the color of your vest, Maggie. It's almost, it's like pinkish purple, but really pretty deep. And this 19-year-old discovered it while mixing quinine in a home laboratory. And so she's going to dye it this, like with modern dyes, and kind of like color match it. And then, so that's the wall hanging. And hopefully hopefully it will be beautiful. So I am right now processing, picking apart and then carding this fiber so that I can do a double draft with it. So that's what I'm doing. And I was going to show you guys, I was going to do a little bit of it on here, but I think first we should do the other stuff. Talk to Maggie, see what I know you have some, Laura has made some progress.
I did my homework.
Did everyone else do their homework?
Sharon definitely did his homework. I don't know what other people have done.
You assigned a lot of homework
I
last
did.
episode.
I was feeling sassy. I've been in a sassy Zoom mood lately.
Well, right now, I'll just tell you what I'm doing that Maggie showed me. Usually I wouldn't do this, Maggie, and I feel like this really has helped the processing. But normally I would take these locks, which are really like crazy clean. I feel like a much better, they're very clean and still pretty intact. And I'm holding them and I'm just picking them apart to make sure there's no short bits and no felted bits and no VM. And that's what I'm doing right now. That's the first part of my process. So
Hey,
I'm just going
JC, I'm
to
going to interrupt for a second. We had someone on the forum say that we're at capacity. Did you, I know that you've paid for more than 100 people.
I
Can you
have. We
check
should
that real
actually.
fast?
I
Today has
should.
been like all the tech issues, friends.
When I do this, actually, if you don't mind, you go through your sweater
Okay.
and I'll take care of that.
I will definitely do that. So I'll make myself, well, I'm big already. So I finished my sweater. And this is the Stripy Unicorn by Joji Locatelli. It is a yoke raglan hybrid, and it is a stripy sweater. So like one row is hand spun, and the other row is some natural Jacob from Round Barn Fibers, I believe. I got it at Wisconsin Sheep and Wool this year. So they say it's a sport weight. I kind of feel like it is a fingering weight, but it is done and it grew the perfect amount that I wanted it to, and I am super happy with it. I spun 12 ounces of Into the World Herding Cats, which is what I feel like my daily is. Um, and I did it as a fractal, and I'm just really, really pleased with it. So first hand spun / commercial co-op sweater of the year done, which is super cool. I didn't make a lot of modifications. I did switch from just the She Has You Do stockinette after the ribbing, and I just wanted ribbing. So that's the main modification that I made, and that's it. But I did start a new sweater because I am apparently addicted, and it does not look like much right now, but this is the Mystic Square by James Watts, and it is a modular sweater. So I am a huge fan of swatching, and I didn't for this because the whole first panel is just a rectangle. So I just cast it on and then I measured it and it's the right size. When will that happen again? But even if it wasn't the right size, I knew that I could, as I attached this side going up, I could have added more stitches or less stitches to make it work. So I'm living life very dangerously. And this was a mashup spin. Where's the yarn? That I did for Jillian's Patreon for her 100 days. It is 1.25 pounds of 3 different colorways of Hello Yarn. So all like merino, Falkland, Polworth, fine wool type things, and a 3-ply. And I rarely spin 3-plies. So yeah. And I am a very loose knitter, like socks on 00 type knitting. The sweater I'm wearing was knit on size 3s. I'm knitting this on size 6s. It's going so fast, and I am so happy about that. So size 6s for the wins. And that's about it for me for that. I'm just very in a sweater mood. I have another sweater that I'm spinning for right now, which is Shayna Cohen's Recalibrate. out of some pretty merino rose fiber from David of Southern Cross Fibers, who's unfortunately retiring this month.
Oh,
Yeah, after 15 years. But yep, it's very pretty. So that is also a modular sweater. I actually knit that one before and wore it to Plyaway a couple years ago. So I am like, there are a ton of people in here that I know make gorgeous hand spun sweaters, like Emily, Knitwit 8, and Java Jenny's in here, and they are just so inspiring to me. And I am on my hand spun sweater kick lifestyle for right now. And even though it's 70 like 4 in Mississippi right now, Jillian was laughing at me because I have my ceiling fan on so I can wear my sweater. But yeah, that's it for me.
okay. I'm gonna say that I don't understand. It says that we have up to 500 people and it's active, but I
Mhm.
see that it's capping it at 100, and I wonder if maybe it's because I didn't start, but it shouldn't be because I didn't start the meeting.
I don't think so.
I don't understand. Okay, I'll put in a ticket real quick and then we'll keep on going and see if they can address it.
Yeah.
So,
Does anyone have any questions about knitting or spinning for sweaters while we're killing some time? Oh, and thank you all for all your lovely comments in the chat.
I have knit 2 hand spun sweaters now. One was Harvest from Tin Can Knits.
That is an excellent sweater.
Yeah, and then the other one I did was a free pattern, and I'm not sure I'm gonna remember what it is. But I had been given a bump of whatever I picked out from the recycled lamb, which is no longer in Denver on Maggie. Anyway, I had bought my Cherry 50th year anniversary matchless there. And they said, go pick out a bump of fiber. And so I did, and I spun it up into a really fine 3-ply and did this. It's got lace on the top. And if I can remember it, I'll jump on here in a minute and look and tell you. But knitting a hand spun sweater is the most fun ever. I just love. And I've got another one on the needles that I hand spun it's the Alpine Bloom. I'm doing that one. And I've got another almost sweater quantity of a gray from Ranching Tradition Fibers that I haven't decided what I'm going to do with it yet. So
Ooh.
you
Well,
get
keep
really
us-
invested in the hand spun yarn and the sweater thing.
Absolutely. And I find that it helps me the next time I go to spin for a sweater. Like I learn because I've knit up that hand spun. I know what's going on. JC, someone mentioned in chat to me, it could be because I was host and you were co-host. So
yeah,
now
you know what?
I've made you host. So
Okay.
maybe that will help.
And I just did I added a license, another license for you well, you had a license to start the meeting, but now you have another license to hold giant meetings.
Yes.
Just it would help. But I'll deal with asking them to fix the licensing after this. But hopefully one of those two things helps. But we're still right at 100. So we'll see if
And I'll go into the chat on the forums
Okay.
and let people know. How do I know how much to spin? Jennifer asked. I actually spun for the sweater. I always overestimate versus underestimate because of shrinkage and some other things. Although I am going to be tight with the sweater I am knitting right now. I kind of look, if it's fingering weight, I know that I can do a 3-ply fingering weight and get 400 yards. So that's kind of comparable usually, but I look at grist a lot when I'm thinking about subbing. Grist is yards per pound. And so if I'm subbing for a commercial yarn, I look at the fiber content of that yarn and then I look at the grist. And that's mainly the two things. And sometimes the twist, if I can get a hold of like a good photograph of the skein or if I know that yarn. But the one that I'm wearing is was originally designed in Spin Cycle, which is a dyed in the wool type yarn. So that's why I did the fractal with it. And that one is like 200 yards per 50 grams. So even though they're saying it's a sport, it's right on that fingering for me. So I kind of went with that. But yeah, that's all kind of what I keep in mind. And then when it comes to stash busting a sweater, mixing commercial and hand spun, I have a whole article on that in the sweaters issue of Ply. So there's a lot of information there, but also y'all know that you can PM me anytime. I am Lala Knits on Instagram, or you can send me an email or a message on the forums, and I will be happy to help.
You're so nice.
Well, I'm glad someone thinks so. My sixth graders would disagree with that statement very strongly. I am going to get off the big screen because you all don't need to see my face any. Oh, I can't because I'm not a
Leaving your face big.
or I can't do anything. Can you make me a
I
co-host,
I
please?
can. And do you guys, since we have Maggie here, do you guys want to switch to just like, if anyone has questions for Maggie and we can all just, we can talk to Maggie? Does that seem like a good?
Absolutely. That sounds good to me. There was a question in the forums, which is why I originally brought it up, and it was Judy on the Mountain was asking about the difference between carded fiber and combed top.
Oh,
Ooh,
Maggie,
such-
do you want to take that?
Yeah, they're almost exactly opposite. Traditionally, and I'll talk about traditionally because there's a difference between traditional and what people do today. I mean, but traditionally, carded fibers were shorter fibers. So I like to think of them about the size, so around 4 or 5 inches. 5 inches is getting kind of long, but just about the face of your hand carder. Because and then they are carded, so they are the fibers are teased like what JC is doing right now, and then she's going to put the fibers on her carders and card those fibers. So that's going to kind of semi-organize them. So I like to think of them as a crowd going to an event, a concert, or some kind of game or something like that. They're all heading in the same direction, but they're not very orderly. They are they're tall, and some of them are tall, some of them are short, and they certainly are not in straight lines. They're just kind of a group. So, oh, good. So JC is now dressing her carders.
Not as nice as Maggie does. I'm not very good at hand carding,
Looks fine to me.
but you keep
I don't know how to card the right way, so. And so the fibers are semi-organized. And again, because they are shorter, after they're carded, and we'll wait a second till JC gets them nicely carded, she's going to put them into a row lock. So she's just going to tuck the ends in and make this lovely, fluffy little cigar shaped thing. And then when you spin it just the way it is. So the fibers they come out just almost like a little cyclone. And because of that, there's lots of air spaces in a woolen yarn where there aren't nearly as many air spaces in a combed fiber and a worsted yarn. So so it's a two-part thing. One is the fiber, how it's prepared, and the second one is how it's spun. So a carded fiber, so a woolen fiber is a prepared woolen fiber would be hand carded, put into row logs, and then spun with twists between your hands. And it would be spun from a row log. So I like to think of it as the yarn is spun by a committee because the twist is entering into the fiber as you're drafting it out. So you don't have as much control as you do if you had a combed fiber and you were spinning worsted. So it's It's not going to be as uniform, but it's going to be a lot bouncier and more elastic and fuzzier and warmer and not as strong and will pill a little bit faster, but it will be more lightweight. So when you think about a worsted yarn, it's about all those things I just said woolen fiber is. So woolen, traditionally worsted fibers are longer. That doesn't make sense now because, you know, you can buy combed cotton, which certainly is not long, but traditionally worsted fibers were longer wool fibers, and they were combed, which removes all the short bits and lines those fibers up like they're a little drill team. They're very organized, and those combs are really mean. So not only are those fibers very organized, they obey. So, and then when you spin those, you are spinning with no twist between your hands. So you are actually creating the yarn, and then you're bringing the twist down over it. So it is going to be a more lustrous yarn. It's going to be a stronger yarn. It is not going to be as elastic. It is going to drape better, where a woolen yarn is not, will have loft, but won't necessarily drape as well. And what I usually like to say is that if you have a pound of worsted yarn and a pound of woolen yarn, the worsted weighs more.
And Zeke,
usually
when Zeke heard that, he was like, that does not make any sense.
but traditionally, if you had a yarn that had exactly the same number of fibers, one woolen and one worsted, the worsted would have less yardage than the woolen would, just because air takes up more space in the woolen yarn. Long answer. I hope
I was
that
in
helped.
a meeting last night, Maggie, and I thought this was super clever. Kathleen said she got it from Hipstring. She was talking, we were talking about that, and she's like, think about worsted as like a stack of papers and everything's like that. But woolen is like if you crumpled those papers, and it's
Yeah.
gonna take up much more space. And I thought that was like mind blown, genius moment.
Yeah.
Like that just makes so much sense in my brain, so that I thought I'd throw that out there for other
I
people.
like that.
Me
I may
too.
steal
That
it.
Jill of Hip Strings is amazing.
She is so good.
And Maggie, you were saying that, you know, those are traditional ways, and I am of the belief that those names should still mean what they mean. And I know
Right.
that like current, like Etsy and sellers have kind of, in order to use algorithms and get more sales, people have started to call everything, like in hashtags and listings. But it's important that we know what things are. And so I think it's still important to call comb top, and carded fiber, carded roving, carded.
I agree. It's just what I'm thinking of it, and what I did not understand for a long time is that you can certainly card fibers and put them into a roll-lock, but if they're a little bit longer than that little short bit, if the roll-lock starts making several rounds, it's not going to be as airy and light,
And
because it's so thick, it's going to start to compress itself.
so when I started spinning, I was very much, as I still think I do, where I'm just like, oh, that's traditional, but I'm not going to do that. I want to do all the other stuff. I don't want to follow your rules. And it took me a lot of experimenting to realize that the ways that we traditionally do things are not like arbitrary. We do it because that's how it has worked better. Just like you said, if you're using a long fiber, not only is it really hard to use hand combs or hand cards in a long fiber, but then your roll lag is like doesn't feed or spin as light and lofty. And if you have really short fibers, it's much more difficult to spin them with this short, tiny little draft. And
Yeah.
so we developed these ways, which first we had the materials and we developed ways to use them well, opposed to saying, hey, I want to spin like this. And you know what I mean? Like it's best practices because it's what worked best, but we can always we can always change that up. It's just that when I did that, my first years spinning, I realized why we spin the way we do. Because
Well,
it's
and
not.
I think, yeah, and I think what we do now is it's kind of a dim sum table where you can just do a lot of combinations. And as long as you know why you're doing them, then you're going to get the yarn that you want. But you've got to have the knowledge of why something was done traditionally, so then you can break the rules a little bit.
That makes total sense to me. It did not for a long time. For a long time, I'm just like, no way, I'm doing what I want when I want. Yes, so what else you guys got? Oh, so someone
Oh,
said,
Joyce. Oh, go ahead, JC.
Janet said that she just bought some comb top roving, and that's right. That's
That's
think-
kind of an oxymoron.
right. I think Etsy has really, it's confusing now because
Except what we used to do when the shop was open is if someone would come in and ask where the roving was, we would just point to where the fiber was, because roving to me kind of means fiber to spin, as kind of like Kleenex. When you ask for a Kleenex, it may come from Costco, it may come from somebody else, but yeah.
Joy, you have a
But-
question. Do you want to unmute?
I just wanted to chime in about the rules are not arbitrary. The rules are the rules because they work.
Right.
When I was a fairly new spinner, I decided I was going to spin a singles yarn and knit socks out of it. And I entered it in the local county fair, and I got a horrible score because she said it's completely inappropriate for socks. And I made socks out of it, and they lasted about 5 wearings. So there's a reason why we have these rules.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes we all balk at the idea of rules in a craft or in art, and I think that that's okay. It's okay that we do, because in my opinion, and at least for my brain, when I go off script and I do things that are against the rules is when I learn, oh, that's why you should do it that way. So it probably taught you, like, doing that and having your socks not be great probably taught you more than someone just saying, hey, you should just do it this way. I always feel like if you do the work, if you go through the process, like the information becomes part of you instead of just something someone told you.
We have a question from Joanna about what causes wool to pill. She's heard a variety of causes. She's never sure which is correct.
Maggie?
One reason is the yarn might be spun woolen. Because if it's woolen and you and the twister are creating the yarn, you're going to tend to have little ends stick out more than you would with a worsted yarn. So those little ends poking out can start hanging out with other friends and making pills. Part of it could also be you might have a fiber that is the wrong fiber for the size of yarn that's being made. I think, there are some worsted merino yarns out there, worsted weight merino yarns that are out there that pill very quickly, and it's just because it's a singles yarn, and merino is really, it's crimpy, and it's not really long enough to hold together as a singles in worsted weight. So it's the choice of the fiber and the size that don't necessarily go along.
So ply structure has some,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah, so a
maybe?
two-ply worsted merino would not pill nearly as quickly as the singles.
And the singles, in order to make it not pill as much, you would have to add more twist to it, which then defeats the purpose of using, it makes
Right.
your soft, squishy yarn not soft and squishy anymore.
Yeah, or full it a little bit, which again would remove some of the elasticity that you want. So
So it's essentially the ends, right? All the ends that poke out and get rubbed Whether
Right.
that's from being spun woolen or being spun without enough twist or being spun with the wrong fiber, it's just abrasion, right?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah,
more
I
ends
mean,
you took out,
normally, yeah, and just longer fibers are probably not going to pill as much as some of the shorter fibers, but they may not be as comfortable either.
what about really short? What about like cotton?
Like-
Because cotton doesn't really pill,
Yeah,
but
Oh,
it's,
yes, it does.
Yeah, yeah, and it can really just look pretty tacky.
that's
Oh,
true. That's
It,
true.
it can pill quite a lot.
But it doesn't, I guess it just
It
doesn't.
doesn't
feel
pill in the
same.
same way. No.
Do you think that's
because-
because we add so much twist when we spin it?
or
or
it has
how
no
it's finished?
elasticity?
Right. Huh.
I would say it's probably more twist than anything else. And
Yeah.
structure. You don't see singles cotton yarn.
That's true.
Actually, that the yarn company, one of them years ago made this big slubby cotton yarn. And the yarn rep would come and he'd try to sell it to us. And he never wanted to talk to me since I was the spinner. And I was always questioning him about how the yarn was actually made. And I would just laugh at it because even his sample in his sample bag looked like the cat had slept in it for
Aw.
weeks. And it just wasn't, I think cotton is not appropriate that if it's a single yarn.
Or even a thick and thin.
Yeah,
Like it's,
Yeah.
you can do it, but your thick spots are really short, but it just doesn't wear well.
no, and that's where it's going to abrade. And it may not pill so much, but it's going to abrade, I think. Maybe that's a better way of
Maybe
feeling it.
That makes sense.
Diane has a question, and I'm not certain I understand this. So, Diane, you might have to unmute. When you consider commercial comb top that is carded, then goes through a pin drafter at the fiber mill, would you call that pencil thin fiber that comes, what would you call that pencil thin fiber that comes off the pin drafter? Comb top,
call-
pencil roving, what would you call it?
Pin drafted.
Yeah. It's roving though, right? Because it's carded.
So it's carded but then it's more, or the pin drafting organizes it more, but it doesn't remove the shorter fibers.
Yeah.
I think it removes maybe it.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused about, okay, if it's commercial, it's all the fibers carded first.
Right.
And if
Yes.
you buy a comb top,
Right.
it's been carded, but then
Yes.
it goes through the pin drafter.
Right,
and
and then it
becomes
goes through,
comb top.
a couple of other things as well too.
But you're
So-
right.
okay.
all of-
So I know some other alpaca farmers that will do, and they sell it as roving, but I kind of questioned that, because it gets carded, but it goes through the pin drafter and it comes out like top, but they just do it in real thin, like pencil.
Mhm.
But isn't that
So
true?
to me, that would be just a small diameter on top.
Well, and sometimes I've seen pin drafted fibers that are not necessarily really, really thin. So I've seen it that is not necessarily,
Well,
like
this
that-
is something special that they have the mill do. It's just to do
Okay.
it in real thin, and then they sell it as roving.
okay.
But is it not true? I mean, what I think that I know is that commercial comb top, when I buy it, has been carded and then
Yes.
goes through several processes, but we still call it comb top, even though it lacks the element of hand comb top where all of the fibers should be the same length. It lacks, like, you're going to get some variation in length with commercial comb top, but it's the best that we can get commercially without having to do it by hand.
So
Um,
a true worsted would have to be done on combs if you
Right.
really wanted to be that picky. But have
I was
you
gonna
noticed
say, we're not
when
that
you,
picky.
Well, but have you noticed sometimes when you spin off your combs, that yarn is always fuzzier than comb top,
True.
so.
And always so much more. I tell you what, the first time I combed and dizzed fiber off into my own hand comb top, I made the most elastic yarn I had ever spun, because everything I had spun to that point was commercially combed. And it was more elastic than any yarn, any woolen yarn, any yarn I'd ever spun. And that was simply because the crimp is still so active. Like, it's not been steamed, it's not been overly processed. It's really like this. And I was so shocked at how very elastic and awesome that yarn was. And it's still one of my favorite ways to make yarn from comb top, hand comb top. I'm looking at this.
Yeah, I'm looking at Beth. Beth, can you unmute? And I think I need more details about your question.
That'd be me. Oh,
Beth
okay.
Mercer. Yep. I think I'm like, my brain is not firing on all cylinders.
It's all
tonight,
right.
Apparently.
I've been wondering for a really long time about whether or not I understand correctly something that I see happening when I'm spinning my singles and I just relax my hands to see where the ply back is occurring. And my impression is that when it's not got enough twist in it to be balanced, the ply back happens closer to my hands. When it seems to have a bit too much twist, then the ply back occurs closer to the orifice. And then when I think it's nicely balanced, that ply back, again, when I'm just sort of relaxing my hands to let the single, ply back on itself just without trying to bend it, that when it seems to be correctly balanced, that ply back will occur equidistant between my hands and the orifice. Did I make that up, or is that a thing? Certainly I can cause that place to change. Like if it's closer to my hands, I can just treadle some more to add more twist, and I can watch it work its way down till it's closer to the orifice.
So are you asking for best practices for doing plyback samples? Like
No,
how-
I'm just
No?
I'm just
Okay.
wondering.
Okay, so I'm gonna add, first, I'm gonna tell you what I think is happening, and then we're gonna have Maggie. One is that kind of plyback is not what I would think of as best practices, because when you just relax your hand towards your orifice to see your plyback, to see what you're doing, you are not getting a real reading of your yarn, because unless you are a perfectly even spinner with no variation or inconsistency, that plyback is going to happen in your thinnest spot. So if you have this much yarn between you and the orifice and you just relax your hand towards your wheel, it's going to give you a plyback wherever you have the fewest amount of fibers. And the more twist you add into that, so if you see that moving, it's because the more twist you're adding into that length of fiber that you have, or that length of yarn, you're extending the amount of yarn that's going to ply back on itself, because you're adding more twist. And twist is going to go into the thinnest parts. And when it fills up that thin part, it's going to slowly make its way out into the slightly thicker parts. So you're able to observe that the yarn that's plying back changing, but the best practice is to pull it out, pinch it off, and let that section of yarn that you have pinched off ply back on itself. And that'll give you a real reading of the twist that you have in your yarn, opposed to just giving you a reading of the twist in your thinnest part of your yarn. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I've heard you say that, while following the various sessions. In my case, while I am not a perfect spinner,
I've never met
what I'm
one.
seeing doesn't
Yeah.
appear, what I'm seeing seems to be, and I'm not looking for whether or not it's balanced. I'm trying to understand what I'm seeing. Because I understand that if I will say that for the 10 or 12 inches between my hands and the orifice, I can tell you there are times when, yes, it's quite the same, thickness, very even. And it doesn't appear that the little kink, when I relax my hands, has anything to do with a thin spot. It seems to be more with how much twist is in there. More twist, it will tend to that initial kink, the automatic, it will occur towards the orifice. The less twist in there, it tends to occur near my hands.
I'm just gonna test this out real quick.
Yeah, I've been doing. I wasn't sure because for a while there, I was thinking, okay, if I got it backwards, because I would do that, and occasionally I'd think, oh, is it too much or too little? And I had to really work on it the other night and deliberately over twist to watch it move. So at least for me, I know it's happening consistently. I'm not saying it's best practices, not at all.
Well, yeah. So I'm just gonna change my camera view so we can see what's happening. I'm not sure what's gonna happen, but let's take a look at it and see. Let me see if I can get myself in here.
So I think one of the things I wonder is if you're just letting it fold back on itself and you're not pinching it off, fiber doesn't like to be twisted. So if you are not just pinching it off so the twist can't go anywhere, those fibers are trying to push the twist back out of them. So maybe is that the issue? Does that make sense?
Well, so I'm not sure, you're talking about, you're spinning here, right?
Right, and I also sit quite a ways back from my orifice, so I
I'm
have
trying
a
to-
lot of fiber that's.
I'm trying to get myself in the screen, so I'm kind of having.
Yeah. So at any point, stop and just relax your hand forward.
All right, so I'm spinning, 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 and then you don't let this go, right? You keep it
Correct.
pinched, and you just, here, let's put a little more in.
And that kind of went in the middle.
Let's see.
Now deliberately try to underspin it.
Okay, so you're talking about that the plyback
doing this.
actually is in a different spot.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, all right.
Now, when I believe that I have been spinning very consistently and, oh, did I turn myself off? No, I didn't. And, drafting very consistently, feeding it in very consistently, that little default plyback that happens, the bending back, will be in the center. And when I've been not paying attention and I have been maybe feeding more fiber than I should be, than what I realized I should be doing, then if I do that same exact thing, that plyback will happen right next to my hands, not in the middle. And if for any reason I've been like zoning out and I stopped and talked with somebody and kept on treadling, so I kept putting more twist into that same area, the plyback will be right up next to the orifice.
Well,
So
that makes more
I'm
sense.
getting each of mine, and like, if I use the same yarn, same fiber, right? So the
You're just
same,
too consistent.
so I'm here. And I'm underspinning, right? So
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
So this is pretty, so here's my.
Oh, interesting. Yours underspun and it's near the orifice, and mine's the opposite. Okay, so it's
So
not.
now if I treadle and add more and I do it, it's still there. And if I add a lot more, it's still there. But before, when I did it, it was in the middle for all three. So I think it has more to do with maybe the amount of fibers, like how thick now. But for everybody watching, this is not, and I'm just going to show you what I mean by this. So I am treadling, spinning, spinning. And if I just do this, right, here's the yarn that we are seeing. Can you guys see that twist? Let me see if I can. So if I just relax my hand up, this is the twist that it is showing me right there.
Yeah.
All right. Now, if I take that same twist, I don't change anything, and I actually do a plyback, which is pinching here and doing this. Can you see how much less twist is actually in my yarn? My plyback is much looser, because when I just relax my hand forward like that, that twist is going to go into the thinnest spots. And so it's going to show me this thinner, tighter yarn than I actually have, because what I actually have is this. So I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure what that means, but I do know that it's probably not giving you, I don't know that it's super beneficial to do that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what.
I will stop doing it because I thought it was allowing me to determine whether or not I was at least being consistent. But I was also sort of relying on the resultant apparent yarn, thinking, that's a really nice amount of twist. I like that. But in truth, my finished yarn always ends up a lot looser than what I've been seeing. So thank
That
you.
makes sense.
I appreciate it.
And
But I do wonder why, like because even in that space of me doing that, sometimes it did the ply back way up close, but I think it's more has to do with that particular length of yarn where my thinner spot was, even though it doesn't look thinner, there's fewer fibers in those spots. And that's my guess about why it works that way. Maggie, what do you think?
I agree. Yeah.
Yay.
And I also think that pinching it off keeps the twist from escaping as well too. So that's going to give you a more consistent look as well.
And I think like when I do playbacks, I pull yarn. Sorry, Pearl's trying to dig her way into this room and it is not working out for her. Pearl's my Great Pyrenees for those of you who don't know. So I pull my plyback off the bobbin. So it's already on the bobbin and I'm pulling it all the way because that's my final twist.
That's usually what when I'm really doing it as well. I think that that's probably best practices. Sometimes I just pull it out of the orifice, but doing it like stopping and taking it right there is not, you're right, is not your final twist.
No. And I usually do it right out of the orifice because I'm looking for consistency. And I know if I stop and do it from the bobbin, I'm not going to do it nearly as often.
Right. That's probably true. Oh, that was a good question though. Interesting. I like the questions that make us like think, right? Figure out what
Absolutely.
and why.
And thank
things
you
go
for
like that.
unmuting to really ask that question, Beth, because I was very confused. So I'm glad we could work through it.
We have any more? Maggie, can you see can you see this?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the tip of it. Should I be pulling those off?
If it comes off easily, off with
Okay.
its head. Be the Red Queen.
We were having dinner the other night and the kids said something about 3 being the magic number. And I was like, Maggie Casey says that all the time. So, yeah, do we have any more? No, Beth, you're asking, there shouldn't be 100, a cutoff right now. I'm not sure what's wrong with it. We pay an extra so much for an extra plan every month. We're supposed to be able to have up to 500 and we're not sure why it's not working for the spin-in, but we think it has something to do with the fact that I gave the wrong link, then Laura had to start it. And mostly my point is we're going to blame Laura for this. Totally. We're just
When
gonna
in
blame
doubt.
Laura. But no, normally it is not cut off at 100. So we will make sure that is not the case next
And I
time.
appreciate y'all being patient with tonight. It's just been a weird fluke of a night.
In fact, my
Y'all are
dog,
so good.
my puppy is just downstairs by himself. Who knows what's happening? Actually, I know what's happening. He's on the couch. That's what's happening.
Oh, that's where Pearl usually is, but she got shaved. I shave her in the summer. Because I live in Mississippi and she has been super sassy. Like there's a sassiness going around this household this week that I don't know. It might have started with the middle schoolers. People are saying it's Mercury in retrograde, but there is at least Nula's being good.
No, I'm petting her with one hand. Or she'd be putting her paw on my knee.
Pearl's
So
come up like
pay
she started.
attention.
Look what I've done.
Ooh,
Giant
look
pie.
at that pretty
Good job.
cloud. Is there a reason, I have a question for you, JC. Is there a reason why you're doing it on the hand cards versus like a lock pop to open them up?
Well, honestly, I know that I got the hand cards out and you guys think I'm gonna hand card it, and I am, but I tested a bunch today. I did like a bunch of different preparations to see which thing I wanted. So first I just made Rolags off of the hand cards and spun it, and then I did drum carded bats, and I did the lock pop. And honestly, what I think I'm going to do is I'm gonna make a bat, run it one through time. I'm opening them up. I'm gonna run it one time through the carder, and then I'm gonna take a section of this and make a Rolag out of it on the hand cards. And I know that seems weird, but it keeps me, I can do a bigger chunk since I have to do 2,500 yards of this. I can do the initial carding here, and then I can do the gentle last pass on my hand cards to give me a Rolag, because that's really the only way I can double draft is with a really like loosely prepared Rolag. So that's what I'm doing, is flicking or opening up, drum carding, and then hand cards. I like to use every tool for everything. I like to make things as complicated as possible.
I understand that. Have you tried, Clemis sells like this block that you can put into your carder that holds it so you can pull Rolags off the carder. Did you know that?
No, but Roy is coming.
I know, when Roy comes, that's why I was thinking you need to get him to show you that.
Yes, he's
It
totally
basically
doing it.
locks the handle in place so that you can pull like
Oh.
Rolags right off the carder.
So he's doing that. He's going to do
Oh,
a lesson.
good.
So he's doing kind of like a basic intro to drum carding for season 1, and how to make, and then he's going to go into, for the worsted season, how to make cone top off of your drum carder, how to make or semi, it's like carded top, but he dizzes it off in like alignment. He's going, and then he's going to do a couple preps for there, and then he's going to do some preps for the woolen season, taking Rolags out of it, taking roving off of it. So, and then some blending board stuff. So hopefully I've never seen that done, and I am excited to see what he does.
Absolutely.
So,
Terry, you have your hand up. I'm sorry, JC, I cut you off a
Oh,
little
no, you're
bit.
fine.
And then there's some questions in the chat we'll get to.
I just wanted to share that I feel like I'm in good company now, JC, because Maggie's tried to convince me that washing my own fleece is a good idea. I'm not thoroughly convinced yet either.
Oh, I am 100% Team Maggie on this one.
Uh,
I just love washing fleece. Like I don't actually get the processing done sometimes, but I love washing fleece.
I don't think I like washing anything. I think that's my problem. And I think that I really enjoy this part of it. And so I feel like washing it, just like I feel like having sheep, because people ask me that all the time, why I don't have sheep, would just take away time from the things that I really love doing. Yeah. And I feel like we are already slow craft people. And so I already feel like I don't have enough time to do all of the things I want to do. So I'm just not sure. I mean, to be fair, I have not really ever washed wool myself. So I just know I don't like washing other things.
I don't mind washing small amounts.
Yes.
Did in your class, Maggie. I just don't see myself doing a whole fleece.
Right. I
Well,
have to
if
go
you're
to
gonna
court.
spend the time, you might as well wash the whole fleece.
I just realized why Pearl wanted in. It's lightning and thundering outside. So she was
Well,
freaking out because of the
and my dog is now eating her dinner.
storm.
So if you
So
hear
I've
that,
allowed the monster
That's
to come
why-
in.
that's why I have kept muting myself, because her dish, of course, is 3 feet away from me.
I have to go grab a power cord. I'll be right back. You guys.
Okay. So Joy wants a demo of Double Draft, so we'll let JC do that when she comes back,
Good.
because I love giving her work to do.
I think that's
Um,
perfect.
See, Team Maggie all the way. So Erin has a question about woolen yarn. She's heard that you underspin and overply, and I've heard that too from Judith, but she
Yes.
doesn't really know how much to over and under compared to worsted. She's just curious about the contrast. How much do you determine, how best to determine how much to over and under do it? Is there some guidance other to just sample, which I feel like is the answer to everything?
Sample, right,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know because I know that's what Judith says and it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I have and when she talks about spinning your singles, it's almost as if they don't have enough twist to hold together.
Yep. They're barely holding together.
Right, and I can't do that. I have to have enough twist in mine, so I know that it's going to be able to be applied yarn.
I
And
think
to be
it depends too on what fiber you're spinning and
Right.
what weight of yarn you're trying to create, and the ply structure that you're trying to create is all going to influence this, because a super fun single is going to be different than a Maggie Casey shove it up the orifice single.
Indeed, yes. Or an Ann Field, give the kudos to the person that I stole it from. It was Ann Field. I did not come up with that.
Absolutely.
And what Judith normally says is what she does is she goes up a drive wheel ratio when
Yep.
she plies for woolen, and sometimes goes down a drive wheel ratio when she plies when she's doing worsted.
Yep.
I'm lazy. I stay on the same drive wheel ratio.
I tend to ply on electric wheel and
Mhm.
spin my singles 90% of the time on a traditional treadle wheel. So I do, like, I have gotten my Hanson to shut off numerous times because I go so high on it for plying. So I burn the motor out. Meh, it is what it is.
Maggie, did I hear you? I just
yeah.
want to you said that Judith, she goes down a pulley size or a whirl size when she plies woolen and then up when she plies.
No, other way around. She goes
So-
up for woolen, down
Down
for
for worsted.
worsted.
She
Yeah.
adds more twist in a woolen than she does in a worsted.
Yeah.
More twist in the ply or in the single?
In the ply.
Okay. More
Very
twist
little twist in the single.
of a woolen is what you're saying. Yes, okay. Just
Yeah.
making sure I was on track with, yes,
Well-
in fact, that's essentially, I probably add a little more twist in my single than she does in my woolen single, because I know she does it in this like almost, it wouldn't hold together as a single.
Mhm.
But I do the same thing in the plying. Like,
Okay.
I
And
don't know.
I try to spin to my ply back. I mean, I try to
makes
ply
sense.
my ply back, so.
That might be why she finishes a little harder in her woolen yarns than I do as well. I do finish rougher than my worsted yarns, but I don't finish quite as rough as she does. But someone you asked,
lock pop right there by chance, JC?
let me
Because
grab it.
people were asking what it is since I mentioned it.
Yes, and I think that Roy is going to talk about it too.
Oh, good. I just like the ergonomics of it versus a flicker.
So here's a lock pop. Can you guys see that? So it has this little hole right here, so you are able to like clamp it to your table or your whatever. Usually what I do is I will clamp it somewhere off to the side, and then you can just take, I didn't bring the clamp, then you can take your lock and you just open it up. And you open up the other side, and you can't see it at all, but that's what you can drag it through, you can open it up. It's just like a little bit of carding cloth on a block that allows you to flick open and open up your locks without having to use, usually when we use a flicker, and I don't have one with me, but we'll put a piece of leather on or something that saves your skin across your lap, and then you'll take a flicker and you'll like flick open all of your locks. This is just an easy way to do it. And like I said, Roy is very intent on, I want to show people how to use the lock. Hang on, I'm looking at this thing.
Oh, I created a poll because we were getting
Rude!
so many
So
comments
rude!
about Team Maggie or Team JC.
So rude.
I told you I was being feisty this week.
I don't want to be pitted against Maggie. Okay.
It's pretty
so-
even. I love it.
Is it?
So
Yeah.
some of us are lazy.
No, I don't think it's that. There's a whole lot of reasons why not to bring dirty fleece into your house.
Right.
Yeah, and I just, like I said, if I added, I always feel like when people ask me if I'm going to, that does open it up nicely. If people ask me when I'm gonna start like getting sheep, I'm like, I feel like that would make it so that I couldn't do anything else. Like, you can only add so many things, I think. And I just added weaving. And so really you guys are just lucky that I'm here at all and not sitting in front of the loom all the time. Did I hear while I was gone that someone asked for some sort of demo
For double drafting. Yep.
Double drafting.
for double drafting? All right. Maggie and I did some double drafting while she was here. Actually, almost all the teachers that I've had come, I've asked them if they are a double drafter to do a segment on it, because everyone that I have had and everyone that I've seen, everyone does it slightly differently. And so the idea is that the more people you see do it, hopefully the more it relates to how you spin and the more likely you're able to do it. Let me quickly card a Rolag and then I'll show you what I do. Which is different than what Maggie does slightly, although we were pretty similar. And different than what Stephanie Gausted does.
Right.
And I don't know if I've ever seen Judith double draft. Is she a double drafter? Do you know, Maggie?
Oh, I'm sure she does everything, but it probably wouldn't be her favorite thing to do since she loves worsted best.
No, I used to, my first few years of spinning, I did not really like woolen spinning. And I think that's, for me, it was just that I didn't really understand how to do it. I learned worsted spinning, and so I was really attached to that control. And it felt so scary to let that go.
People are asking what's the purpose of double drafting, like why you would use double drafting.
Maggie, do you wanna?
Speed and loft. If you want the loftiest, bounciest yarn in a short period of time, double drafting will do it. I had a friend who went to Wales on sabbatical years ago, and when she did long draw, JC, you won.
Yeah. It's pretty even though.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I
that is
didn't get to
not
vote because
even.
I was running it, so.
5 people. That's not even.
But you haven't tried it, so how would you know?
That's true.
That's like
Still gonna hold on to that win, Maggie.
that's like banning a book you haven't read. Sorry. So I had a friend who went to Wales and she did long draw, just kind of the American long draw. And they told her that she didn't know how to spin because they all did double drafting. And when you read Mabel Ross, when she is discussing long draw, she is discussing double drafting.
Yeah.
So
I did not double draft until like I could do it, but it was really hard and it wasn't fast and I didn't make great yarn until Stephanie was here. And watching Stephanie do it, one, I watched Stephanie prepare her Rolags for it and they were much looser. I was always trying to make these like neat and tidy Rolags, and Stephanie was like, it was barely a Rolag. It was kind of like, it was barely a Rolag, but her double drafting was beautiful. And watching her do it is when it clicked for me. And now it's one of my favorite ways to spin. And I can also do it, Maggie's right, the speed of it is so much faster. And because you pull back all at once, I'm just going to describe it first. You pull back all at once and you get all these thick and thin bits, and there's hardly any twist in there right at first. And so all of the air stays in, opposed to pulling back in a supported, which is more like slowly pinch, pull back, that kind of motion, where as you pull back, twist is entering it more, and it's because of that, you're automatically taking more air out immediately. When you pull back quickly, all that air stays there and then you even it out. So you have more of a chance to maintain as much air in there as you can. So just like Maggie said, it's fast and you get kind of the loftiest yarn you can get out of the fiber that you're using. So I'm going to move my wheel over here. We're going to try this whole thing
If you're
again.
doing one of those spinning competition things, that's what a lot of people do.
Right? Okay, let's see what I can do here. I've got a bunch of cords. You can tell that Zeke is not here. He would be aghast at this. Mom, I set it up for you last time. So let me set this up so you can see what's happening. Also, there's just something really magical, I think. I don't even go super far back because I have shoulder issues, but there's something really magical about having this big lumpy bumpy yarn that then just becomes amazing, even lovely yarn. And it's not going to be as even as it will be once you finish it as well, because there's something really, because it has so much air in it, I swear it's almost like it's like self-leveling. It's like the opposite of baking powder. It just, like, because of the air, as you finish it, it's able to kind of level itself into this more even yarn than it is when you originally spin it. So I'm going to switch my camera and we'll
We were
see
talking
where.
last night about how woolen is magic, but you don't realize the magic until after you finish it and you start
Right.
knitting with it or
All right.
crafting with it in general.
Right. All right, let me see how I can make this happen. Let's turn this around.
Colleen says Mabel Ross referred to American long draw as worsted at a distance.
Oh my God. Okay. Oh, you know what? Maybe I don't need this camera. Maybe I need the other camera because it's long draw. Let's see which one works better.
Here's a question. When you long draw on an e-spinner, do you go across your body? Like, do you put so some people put their machines to like right here beside them or I do the other side, but like, and then go across their body. I wonder if that like ergonomically would
Ooh,
change. Just some things to think about.
I have never thought about that. The fact that you can just move it over to the side. I'm going to try that.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
our friend Lois does that, and she showed that to me at SSK, and I was like, now this is how I want to spin all that because it helps with my shoulders.
So I seem to have some cord problems. The cord is also just right on my wheel.
Oh, tonight has been a trip.
All right. So I have not practiced this with I don't know how this fiber is going to go, but we're just gonna be real with you guys.
Okay, I'm gonna take Maggie off spotlight for a second so we can
Yay!
see her big.
Okay, so here's my Rolag. All right. So the first thing you're gonna do is just pull back, and you can see how big, and can you guys see? There, you see that? Big and lumpy, thick and thin. And then I'm going to pinch here and I'm just going to even it out. I'm still treadling. And if I need to come up here and even this part out, I can actually drop this, come in here, adding twist. And as long as I'm adding twist and I'm pulling, I'm essentially going to be double drafting the parts that aren't as thin as the thin parts. So I pull back and I get what Stephanie calls your proto yarn, the yarn that's in here that is the yarn that you want, the diameter that you want. And that has the amount of twist that I'm happy with. But this stuff, the stuff that's thicker, the big clumps, it has less twist. And so I'm able to still draft it. I'm still able to pull apart and get it to match the proto yarn. And so I do that until it all is nice and even. So I go here, this is draft number 1. And can you guys see that we have these big thick parts? Laura, can you see this okay?
Yes.
Okay, so you have big thick parts and then you pinch, you add your twist, then you draft, pull back, back, back until you get what is essentially a then very even yarn. And then when you wash it, it's going to be even more even, So quick pull back, that never happens.
Never when you're demoing does anything go wrong. You're not a human, you're a robot. Fix it.
You don't want to have too much uptake because as soon as you start pulling back, you have no twist in there. So if your wheel is pulling against you also, and you're pulling back with no twist, you're going to end up doing what I just did. So don't want too much uptake. You pull backwards quick, and then you go double draft, double draft, double draft, double draft, double draft. If you can't pull back that far, you drop it and even it out up here. There we go. There we go. But I want you guys to see how very fast it is. It's so fast and awesome. So it's now my favorite way, opposed to the kind of supported or point of contact long draw, which is more pinch, pull back, pinch, pull back, pinch, pull back, pinch, pull back. Pinch, pull back, pinch, pull back, pinch, pull back, right? So here's my kind of supported long draw, and then here's my double draft long draw.
Ooh, here's a controversial question. What drive is best for long draw? Like what wheel drive system? Irish, Scotch, or double?
Okay, let's take some different viewpoints on this. Okay, so for me, I have spun the most on a flyer lead wheel, on a Scotch tension wheel. So I'm really comfortable on that. I find long draw to be more difficult on a bobbin lead wheel because there's more uptake and it drafts it faster than I want it to for me. There's too much pull on it. I can do it on a double drive, but I'm not as good on a double drive in general. So I think sometimes that's the drawback for me. There are people like Stephanie who double drive is the system that she chooses the most often. Like it's her go-to system, and she spins long draw and double draft on that really beautifully. I can, but I'm not as comfortable with it. So I think somewhat it's what you're comfortable with. Like I think you could do it on a bobbin lead wheel if that's the wheel you're comfortable with. But for me, I do it most often on Scotch tension or double drive, but less well on double drive. Maggie, what about you?
I agree. I think it's whatever wheel you're the most comfortable with is going to, but if you practice on whatever wheel you practice on is what you're going to be best at. I really am a flyer lead spinner. I find that when I'm spinning on a double drive, there is just a little bit of a delay before things come into play, and that drives me nuts. So.
See, I love double drive for long draw. I think that like pause in the take up lets me get that extra little like
Okay.
double draft in.
Well, and JC, you're pinching off after you make that first draft, so you're not feeding any more fiber.
That's true. You're right. And I didn't mention that when I pull back like so, I'm pinching right here. So there's no more fiber going into it. I'm only double drafting these big chunks that I've already drafted the first time. So I'm not letting any more in. And if I get, and I was going to show you guys and I didn't show you, but let's see. When I do a ply back of this, just want to show you like, it's not a ton of twist in my woolen yarns. I would do more than this. This I think is not enough twist for me. Like I like my woolen yarns when I do a ply back for it to look almost like I want it to look when it's plied, but I do less twist than I do in a worsted yarn. Do you do less twist in a woolen single than you do in a worsted single, Maggie, or do you?
Good question. I think probably I do less because it takes less time.
Right.
With
And
a
I remember,
worsted yarn, it's always going to be longer.
so it's kind of like, it ends up a little more like this for me. I remember Judith once telling me that, and I don't go in this far, but that she liked her woolen plied yarn from a distance to still look like a single, to have as little twist in it that it looked like a single, even though it was plied.
That would
Mine,
make me switch.
I don't know
Now,
that
I
I like
do-
crafting with that.
yeah, I don't know, but I do get, and it does make such a nice yarn because if you have less twist in your single, even if you add a little extra ply twist, you get the protection and you get a little more firmness without having the yarn. It still stays soft and squishy. And Terry, do you spin woolen a lot?
No, most of my spinning is a short forward draw or a short backward draw.
I would have guessed that for you because your yarns are very, like you're a very perfect spinner. Not, and I don't mean that as an insult, but you like you are a very controlled spinner.
Yeah,
And your yarns are very smooth and sleek. And so that makes sense to me. So I won't ask you what system you like. Does anyone else have like an opinion on drive systems and what you like for a woolen spin? Nobody?
Do you want me to do a poll? I'm very into polls. So I'm going to do
Sure.
it. Poll, please.
Do a poll. We'll release the official results.
Let me see
Okay,
if I
so-
can get one working. It's been weird now.
I've been spinning for 40 years and single drive Scotch tension and long draw woolen is my default for almost everything. I just love it. My
Okay, and
favorite, and I'm fast at it.
nice. Do you do double draft? How do you do it?
You know, I didn't know I was double drafting, but after sitting here listening to the explanation, yes, I double draft.
Nice.
I
So-
wouldn't have known the terminology, but that's what I do. I pull
Okay.
back and then I kind of make it the diameter I want and let it wind on. So
Isn't it
That's my-
magical?
I know, yeah, and I'm glad I have a name for it now because I
Right.
wouldn't have known that. So while Laura's doing her
I'm trying to do my magic.
poll.
We'll see.
I just spent 2 Tuesdays at our little bitty school here in Grover, Colorado, of about 90 kids. I saw every kid in the school. We have a life arts class, every kid except the kindergartners and the preschoolers. And I did a spinning demonstration. I had all of them for about an hour rotating through. They got to spin and they'd pull that fiber, and I got some of the Clemis wash stuff. Didn't have time to do a fleece thing. And those kids said, "Oh, it's a cloud," because this fiber was just this cloud coming off the cards. And so they were impressed. And I had more fun for about 3 hours each Tuesday on 2 consecutive weeks. And if anybody gets a chance to demonstrate to kids, it's the most fun ever.
That's awesome. And so many
I was
people, they'll grow up being adults that know that like fiber gets spun and that's how you make yarn.
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
demonstrating today. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Terry. What were you gonna?
Oh, we were demonstrating today and I have a hook that I always use with kids. I don't know if you can see it.
I'm gonna spotlight you so we can.
Oh, thank you. I'm very
No, I'm-
incredibly full right now.
I'm
So
I'm
I have this hook. Whoop,
hang on, I'm making.
I gotcha.
there we go. So I have this hook that I use with kids, and all I do is I hook this piece into a little bit of fluff, and I just give it a couple of turns, and then I give it to the child, and I tell them to turn it with, as fast as they can. I draft the fiber out, and when it gets to a long enough length, I fold it in half, ply it back on itself, and I tie it onto the kid's wrist as a
Oh,
bracelet.
nice.
And I tell them that, I tie it on loosely so that mom and dad can take it off when they get home and they can save it because it's their first yarn that they spun.
Oh,
And, it takes hardly any fiber and hardly any time. And everybody thinks it's the greatest thing in the world.
That's awesome. You are a good spinning ambassador.
Yeah, I try.
All
I
right,
will
where's
also say it's super fun with kids to show them silkworm cocoons.
Oh, yeah.
We love the gross and morbid.
But I always tell them that I'm turning them into spinning wheels and they're doing what my spinning wheel.
nice?
That's
Nice.
fun. All right, so I am going to end the poll. It is really Scotch tension all the way. I wonder if that's just because there's more Scotch tension wheels are probably the most prevalent.
I think
So,
you're
like,
right.
when I look at like my most popular books in my library, Diary of Wimpy Kid's always at the top, but part of that is I have like 10 copies of Diary of Wimpy Kid versus a copy of a book that I only have one copy of. So I
That's
wonder
true.
if, yeah, it's
I mean,
interesting.
because really, there's not a ton. I mean, Matchless, of course, can be set up anyway.
Yeah.
And then there's the Luettes that are bobbin led, but then I think that's true that most of the other wheels that are popular.
The
are
Starlings,
the
like the Daedalus can be Irish or Scotch, but they come in Scotch. So,
yeah.
yeah,
And
an interesting thought.
They
I'm
may
gonna-
be easier to manufacture.
Yeah,
that's
it's true too.
I'm replacing. Oh, I replaced you, Maggie. I didn't mean. I mean, you replaced.
Oh, please, no, put yourself back
Add
up.
you. I'm adding us. But no, was it you? Or maybe it was Stephanie that was saying that. I think it was Stephanie when she was talking about wheels was saying that they are the most simple to get right for wheel makers. Like there's not as much balance needed. There's not as much as with say double drive. I think that was what Stephanie was saying. Do you like how all the information I give people, I just blame it on a better spinner than me? It's like
You are giving credit to that person, which I think is really,
Yeah.
really important.
you call it giving credit, I call it blaming. No, I totally agree with you. I think it's always important to make sure you do that.
The
And
flat iron can also be set up in all three, which I've
Which one?
forgotten. The flat iron.
oh, you know what? I've never spun on one.
Oh, they're fun.
I was just recently at wait, Flatiron is the one. There's Flatiron and Sidekick. Sidekick is the one
Flat
that goes.
iron, yes.
It's the
Flat
little
iron
one.
is the flat pack one that is
Okay.
Saxony style.
Oh, right. I should spin on one of those.
And
just-
and the wheel is a wheelchair wheel,
Which one?
the flat iron. The drive wheel is a wheel that would be used on a wheelchair.
Know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either. That's
Wow.
You
cool.
live in if you live in shack country, you know these things.
But was that part of the design? Was that part of their thought process when they
Well,
did it?
I think probably because it was a wheel that they, was already in production.
That's really nice. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what else do we have? Anything else going on? Are we?
Well, Cindy Lair retired from Shaft.
Yes, I
Cindy-
saw that.
Cindy, who built the first Matchless and was the go-to person who knew all about the wheels.
Oh, is that
She
good news for her?
retired and Jane bought cowboy hats for everyone
I
who
saw
came
that.
to her retirement party, and we had to wear them whether we wanted to or not.
I need a picture of Maggie Casey in a cowboy hat now.
Oh God, I gave mine away because, you know, Judy has two grandkids, and, you know,
Oh,
so she had to have two cowboy hats.
she will.
And they
definitely do
look
that.
like cows, so they were white hats with black spots.
Yes. They were incredible. There's like a lot of discussion about wheels in the chat, and it's so interesting to me. Everyone has their own personal preference, and everyone has a wheel that works for them. And like I am 6 foot tall in real life, so wheels that work for my bestie who's like 5'3" sometimes do not work for me. So it's just interesting. It's like a car. So things that work for one person don't work for others, and so on.
That's true. That's true. That's why we always, at the magazine, we always try to use a variety of wheels, right? Because you want to see your own wheel. And just because a wheel works really well for me, doesn't mean it works really well for everyone out there. And so, no, that's totally true. I don't know that there's any wheels that, I mean, clearly there's no wheels that don't work for anyone, or they wouldn't be wheels anymore.
I've
Right?
seen some.
We don't talk about those wheels.
I took one to Maggie for her to fix it, Flyaway.
Maggie fixes all the wheels.
That is, yes, Maggie is amazing.
I've picked so much fiber now, Maggie. I've picked apart. I mean, I still have all of this, but I have a giant bag full now that's already been picked. So
And
I need-
it would be interesting because I love my lock pop and I use it a lot, but I do think you get a slightly airier row log when you hand pick as opposing to basically flick, because that's what the lock pop is doing.
so when I use the lock pop, I tend to do it if I'm going to spin right from my box.
Yeah.
I don't usually use it in prep. I'm excited to see what Roy does, because he's going to do some, like he's going to do inline tools, like ideally what you would do, but if you only have this, what you do. So I'm excited to see how he uses it. I'm always so awkward about using people's tools in front of them, like that they've made, because I'm like, have I been using it wrong this whole time? Or spinning on a wheel in front of the wheel maker. I'm like, oh, am I sitting on the wrong side of it? What have I been doing this whole time?
Gord will
I-
let you know if you are not doing something correct on one of his wheels. He will not be.
And so will Roy about the
Yes.
deep part of the house.
Oh,
They'll let
okay.
you know.
Right, that's true. All righty, I have
Ooh.
a dog to take care of.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Megan said that she uses a lock pop to separate double-coated fleeces, which is super
Ah.
smart.
That is Megan Condon.
Yes.
Hi, Megan.
Also,
We should-
Heavenly's here and told me about a really cool, well, she told everyone, but I'm pretending that I know Heavenly personally now. That a really cool wheel that is meant to go sideways, essentially. So,
Is what?
like we were talking about spinning from the side,
Yeah.
and let me see if I can find it. Swiss lateral wheels allow you
Okay.
to double draft across the body in front of you. You sit next to or beside the wheel, making it perfect for long draw across the body.
I want to tell you guys that this was the first time I'd met Heavenly, and I could not have enjoyed her any more than I did. Like having her was awesome, and I can't wait for you guys to see her episodes. Having Maggie was awesome. Having every teacher that's been here has been fantastic. And Terry, it's funny because I was talking to Roy about his silk reeler, asking him if he wanted to bring a silk reeler. And he was like, I'd be remiss if I didn't, like, you should really just have Terry come out and do some silk in the guild because she's really great at it. And I'm sure that her and Herman would love to take the RV out there. And I'm like, oh, of course you guys should bring the RV out here and we should do some episodes.
Well,
And Megan, you should come out.
Oregon is one of the last 2 or 3 states that we need to have visited all 50 states.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
my gosh, Oregon is stunning. I didn't know it until I moved here, but it is beautiful. It is really beautiful.
Herman only needs Oregon and Hawaii, and I need Oregon, Hawaii, and Michigan, and we will have visited all 50 states.
Wow.
You've not been to Michigan? Michigan's amazing.
I don't know how I've managed to miss it, but
Y'all have to go to Sleepy Bear Dunes in that camper. It'll be incredible.
you'll have to send me that one because we definitely take all suggestions seriously.
Well, once I get through this, I have to stop saying that. I have to stop acting like this is just a busy time. And someday soon it's not going to be. Because I think that this is just life. You have a lot of stuff you love doing, and so you're always doing something. But I am starting to get a handle on having the guild and the magazine and figure out how to manage. It took me a couple of years with the magazine to figure out a schedule, and I feel like I'm getting there a little sooner with the guild. So I will definitely, we'll talk. And I don't see Megan because I can only see a certain amount of people, but Megan, we should talk too, because you are doing some really cool and amazing stuff lately. If you're still here, I don't see you. I haven't even scrolled through all of this, but Heavenly was awesome. I see you right now, Heavenly. Having Heavenly was so rad, and Heavenly taught me, which was no easy feat, how to use it was not, she's shaking her head, but it was not easy to get me to spin on a Sharka. So, yeah, it was.
That was so hilarious.
I'm not sure it was hilarious.
It was hilarious in a good way. You're like, I got this. I got this. I'm gonna blame the Sharka.
You're just saying that because I was exhausted and we all wanted to go to bed, but I was like, no,
it was late.
I
It
will
was
learn how
late.
to do this.
Yeah. But you got it. You did great.
It's one of those things I used to tell people in classes. When you're a spinner, you feel like you should be able to at least spin a little bit on everything. Like you
Yeah.
have the skills and the knowledge and you should be able to do it. And I couldn't, and I was getting frustrated, like, why can't I do this? I should be able to do this. But it's a new thing. And I'd never spun off the point before. And it was so hard to start with. And Heavenly kept being like, slow down. I'm like, what do you mean slow down? Like,
She's cranking and
cranking.
cranking and cranking. I'm like, you have to draft too.
But Levi was there watching, and I think that either he's gonna get me one or make me one. This is my prediction. So we'll see how that pans out.
Yes. Get a Sharka.
Okay, I am going to go take care of, I still have on my agenda today, I have to let the rats out of the cage for 1 hour. I'm a good rat owner while Zeke is gone. Don't laugh.
Well, I just see one of these rats like, no, I'm not putting that out into the universe. I'm just gonna keep that to myself.
Please do.
Yeah, like
Heavenly thought she was gonna hate the rats, and she realized
They are actually cute. They are. I am not a rat person. I don't like mice and things like that, but they were cute. That's all I had to say. That's it. That's all I got. They were cute.
They grew
y'all
me.
recorded an episode on the Charka, correct? Someone was asking.
Yes, we did.
That's
Mhm.
perfect.
Yeah.
And it'll be this season too.
Yay.
Good. I keep adding stuff. I'm sorry about that, but I'm like, oh, I want to add this to the season and this to the season, and oh, how about this? But I figure, well, it doesn't really matter. We'll just keep on going for, ad infinitum. We'll keep on going. Okay, I'm gonna go spend time with the rats and then the dog and then the cats and then also card some fiber. It was really fun to see you guys. And I hope that I'll see you next time. And Maggie, thank you so much. Heavenly, I'm leaving you spotlit because and Maggie, I was so happy to have your episodes, and you're gonna actually have another episode this season too, because it's the you don't want to wash your own fleece, but you want to use wool that's unprocessed. So what do you do? So you guys sometime soon will be doing just what I'm doing along with Maggie.
Yay.
Okay. You want to close us down, Laura?
I
You wanna-
will. Bye, y'all.
Bye, everybody.